Kia ora te whānau. Welcome back to On the Record with Ray, a Play It Strange podcast. Ko waiaho, ko Ray tēnei, the award-winning artist, producer, engineer, and of course, proud Play It Strange alumni. Our guest today is the incredible Hollie Smith. She's one of Aotearoa's most recognizable artists of the 21st century. For over 25 years, Hollie has been an integral voice in the local music scene. Alongside 3 #1 solo albums, Hollie has picked up many Aotearoa music awards, has toured all over the world, and has seen her voice become a part of many iconic moments in Aotearoa music history. One of these, Hollie's song Bathe in the River with Don McGlashan, spent 37 weeks in the top 40, peaking at number 2, and went on to win that year's APRA Silver Scroll, which is given to the best song written in Aotearoa that year. Kia ora e hoa, kia ora Hollie. Great to have you here for Kōrero today.
Thanks for having me. First podcast.
Oh, first podcast.
Hello.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. So you recorded your first album at age 16. Pretty young.
Yeah, that one was interesting. So my stepfather, Steve McDonald, he's a Celtic artist, and he was signed to a American label called Aotearoa, and they did sort of world music. And he basically released a single, which I sang on. It was like a duet on one of his bigger albums over there. And so they wanted me to come in and be the young new voice of Celtic music, which I hated with my life.
Wasn't quite the tahi for you at the time?
No, the opposite of what I was doing. So, yeah, basically my mum bribed me and said if I finished it, she'd let me go to the big day out. So
That's a pretty good bribe.
So I did an album.
Good bit of manipulation from your mum there.
Yeah, so it was just pretty
music.
much just released in the States, I think.
Oh, choice.
And yeah, we did a brief tour with that. So I just opened for him on one of his brief tours around the same time, yeah. And then went over actually and recorded my music with the same label, but that didn't end up doing anything. It didn't eventuate.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute. So you really got kickstarted pretty young. You've been in the public eye for over 25 years. Have you ever felt that spotlight has affected your mental well-being?
Not so much the spotlight. I think just the nature of this industry has. You know, just the very high highs and the very low lows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think New Zealand's obviously a little bit different with, you know, things like celebrity. It's not as invasive as obviously some other places and stuff. But
We're a bit more chill.
But yeah, so it's not really I don't really understand the word fame, but you know, it's not really the fame or the spotlight.
Fame, all of that.
It's just more the industry is the difficult part for sure.
Yeah. So in 2005, you had a multi-album record deal with a legendary jazz label called Blue Note, which was recorded in New York. And when their parent label EMI Music was sold, the deal collapsed and you went through a long process of legal negotiations. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this process?
Yeah, that would be the height of my you know, like the hardest thing I've definitely gone through, like in general actually, not just musically. But yeah, so I recorded the album in Aotearoa, and then, you know, the Blue Note came on board and really wanted to be a part of that. And so I went to New York and worked with them for quite a long time on the contract. I was quite, you know, I understand the industry quite well. So had an American lawyer, had a New Zealand lawyer, and just working out a really good deal with us. Luckily, actually, due to that, I got New Zealand territory separate from the global deal, which had actually never been done before, but because it was a smaller territory and because I've been working it for so long. Yeah. So they accepted that, which was my saving grace really at the end. But so I ended up going over there and recording some more songs that they wanted to add or replace on the album that I had done. Yeah. And so we signed a contract and essentially, EMI got bought for the first time by a company called Terra Firma. They bought it for about 4.9 billion or something. And so Guy Hans and Billy Mann was the head of EMI. Guy Hans was the head of Terra Firma, and essentially, they wanted to change the business and all sorts of things. So essentially, Blue Note's underneath EMI. So it was all inclusive, and they kind of came through to me. I was actually on like conference calls with them and stuff for a long time. They really wanted to kind of push the album in a slightly different way and maybe record another song and that kind of thing. But in the contract we had signed, they were obligated to release within 6 months, and we'd already sort of started long lead press and stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, the contract was basically I gift them my masters, and they have to release, like they can't not release. But yeah, so they went back on that, and when I challenged them that they had breached contract, they just said, we're a $4 billion corporation, what are you going to do about it? And so that started obviously in hindsight, I could have done things a lot differently. However, it was just such a personal thing because it was my first baby. Like, it was my first album. It was a huge amount of work for me, and I was immensely proud of it. So yeah, I was like, well, I'd rather sue you than, pay you, because they were saying I had to pay for it to get back. Yeah. And I was like, nah.
So the first breach that made you want to get out of it is just that they didn't want to release, or they were taking too long, or?
Well, basically they got to a point where we were trying to negotiate what we were doing with the album. Because this is just when digital was just starting, and we were actually like, okay, well, why don't we just release this album as is, work with the digital strategy, and then for the second album we can really work together on creating an album that we're both happy with. But then they basically ended up just pulling it and saying we're not going to release it, and I was like, but you have to release it. So and then they were like, okay, sweet. And then I was like, okay, sweet, dissolve the contract, you've wasted a year of my life, dissolve the contract, give me back my masters, we'll leave it at that. And they're like, we own your masters. I'm like, no you don't. And so that was when that lovely phrase came out.
Wow. So you had already set up in your contract that they didn't own that masters?
They owned the masters on signing the contract, but they had to release within 6 months.
Okay.
So yeah, so it
was
like
a breach of contract.
Complete breach, yeah. And obviously both lawyers were like, well, you'd win if you took them to court, but it would probably cost millions, and it would take years and years and years, and you just, might not ever get sort of done. So essentially we came to an agreement, but that took quite a long time. That took a couple of years. And because it was a 2-album deal, I didn't want to write or release anything until we had settled it, because they could claim it, technically, if they were going to go on. And just mentally, I wasn't in a good place at that point, because it was sort of like finding out your religion wasn't real, because it was sort of like the pinnacle of what I'd been working on for since I was 10 years old. And it was the label that I'd always wanted to go with. It was like really, known for being, really caring to their artists and have a lot of integrity in the label. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, now what? Like, now what do I do? Like, I sort of hit rock bottom after climbing this mountain for, like a decade. So it was a really difficult time.
What kind of age were you at this time?
I would have been like early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah,
so a few years after the first kind of release when you were 16. Obviously.
Although that wasn't, I forget that even exists really, because it wasn't really a thing. It wasn't my album by any means, and I just sort of sung on it as a favour really. Just as an experience at that point. So this was definitely my first baby, and from, like I was saying, like I'd sort of been on this trajectory for so long and just working real hard, and I never doubted that would be my life. And then all of a sudden it no longer was, and it took a long time to kind of. I don't think I ever really recovered in confidence-wise, or it took a lot out of me emotionally, and because I kind of just. I didn't know how to build back up again. And by the time I did do that, the industry had really quite dramatically changed, because all of a sudden streaming was in everyone streams. I sort of just was like, okay, I'll climb back, but because I'd lost so much money, lost so much financially as well, it was really hard to kind of keep the reputation, like afford to keep my reputation where it needed to be. In regards to, general business type music stuff. And so I kind of was sort of always on the back foot a little bit since then. And then obviously my income's just, you go from making quite good money to now I think I'm making like 700% less than I did
I know
at
that
the
feeling.
start.
Such is the nature of the ups and downs of the music industry, right?
So, you know, just the landscape in general has changed so much. So it was just, there was a lot of things that dropped at the time, and I'd had some other hardships prior to that, but that definitely really knocked the wind out of my sails, you might say.
Yeah, it sounds like you had like a lot of people on your team that were like helping with guide you through like the legal things and like the actual navigating the business. How did you figure out how to navigate that mentally? Did you have that same kind of support systems, or like how? Yeah, do you have any tips for how to navigate
It was tricky because like my management at the time, because of the deal going south, which has just happened to be wrong place, wrong time. Like there's nothing more. That's the thing that's hard about it is I had no control. Like it's not like if I'd only just done that thing. It's like, why me? But yeah, because my management needed to, you know, they had a family and stuff, so he had to take another job.
Yeah.
So there was husband and wife, they were both looking after me. So he had to take another job. So then I sort of didn't have management all of a sudden, or that kind of support, looking after my day-to-day admin and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden I was a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I had a partner at the time, but just because my mental state got really bad, that went pretty, because I kind of just shifted all my energy onto him.
Yeah.
And that kind of got quite toxic. So, you know, went through what I would call probably one of the more significant relationships. So yeah, I was quite unwell for a time.
So this has obviously been one of the, like you say, one of the hardest things you've gone through, or the hardest things you've gone through in life and in music, but kind of had a rose tint to it in the end, right? Like the album debuted at #1 in Aotearoa, went double platinum, won multiple awards at the Aotearoa Music Awards. Did the lengthy and stressful process, all of the stuff that you had to go through, like how did that affect how you felt about its success?
Well, the thing is, it kind of, like, the timeline's a little bit different. Like, so, you know, we were negotiating all of these things for the global release, but just before that, you know, we released the album here.
Yeah.
And then all this stuff went on. So, so the album actually come out before, you know, all of this sort of went down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just remember it being like, I was really, really stoked, of course, but in my head I was still going further. Like it wasn't like, oh, this went down, but hey, this is cool. It was like, well, this has happened and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to, like, you know, I assumed I would be Lord. Like that's what I was thinking in my head. That's what I was going to achieve. You know, so that was where my head was at. So at that point, no, the album had come out and I'd kind of dealt with all the fanfare of that here. And that happened, subsequently. So, so that's what I mean. Kind of like the high of the album and everything happened a little bit after that. So the timeline's a bit different. But, I mean, I still love the experience I had with the album here, for sure. But
you were kind of focused on
further afar,
next level.
I was like, okay, sweet, because I was in Wellington when I did the record, and then I moved to Auckland because I was about to move to New York, you know. So I was like, okay, sweet, not going to be here much longer, so I'll just go up to Auckland, spend some time with my partner, and then move in. So, and then I kind of went a little bit underground, and everyone just assumed I'd moved to New York and was making massive plans. It's just like, no, I'm in bed crying.
Oh well, they can think think what they want to think. I think a lot of Aotearoa artists have that as well. Like we have this goal of making it internationally, that sometimes it can distract from the success here, and that like sometimes, you know, having some success here is you want to be able to celebrate those wins and you want to be able to.
It was quite interesting at the time as well, because there hadn't been like an international star in New Zealand. Like, I mean, Crowded House, obviously, like, you know, there were people who were known internationally. However, there wasn't like a big sort of shoot to stardom. Like there hadn't been a Lord, there hadn't been a Kimbra, there was like absolutely nothing of the sort. Yeah. So when it came out that I was signed to Blue Note, it was massive news.
Yeah.
So it was like over all media, over everything. It was like, we've got our golden girl. She's like going to go to New York. She's going to make it massive.
So it wasn't just you with this thing of cracking it internationally. It was like the whole country.
Very much like everyone was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. She's just signed to this massive label in New York. Da, da, da. So it was quite big news. So again, it was, you know, no one really knew what was happening, and no one knew what had happened. So, you know, so it was also like, oh, well, like, hey, what are you doing? I thought you were living in New York. It's just like, nope.
Not down the road, just keeping a low profile. But that's kind of like nice though, that like before social media, you could just be like laying low and be doing that. Whereas like if you were on socials, people would like know exactly what was going on the whole time.
That's a good point, yeah, because there was Facebook, I think. Like early Facebook. So just such a wildly different situation.
Not to detract from the fact that was still incredibly difficult to go through, but just,
but that's the thing. But it was quite funny though, like I've said this a couple of times, in regards to, you know how they used to be like celebrity gossip pages, like in the back of the Herald or whatever, like on those, I can't remember what they were called, but it was like Spy or something, and it was like Norrie Montgomery, the photographer, it was like just get all the photos and everyone would get spotted everywhere and blah, 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 and there'd be like little gossip tidbits and blah, blah, blah. It was kind of like, you know, guess who, don't sue, all sort of stuff like that. And when I was going through my breakup, like a lot of people knew that how bad I was and what was happening. But luckily the media didn't want to or try to use that as an angle. And people realised that I was actually quite unwell. So it was sort of more about my safety as well. Because if that had become public, that would have been a lot different. I think the pressure of that would have, you know, intensified it a lot. I was lucky to have that respect.
Thank you, Aotearoa Media, for that part. That one. We'll give you that.
That one little part, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So these negotiations and everything that you went through, it forced a 2-year absence from the music industry. As an artist who uses songs to express emotions and, you know, help us deal with our shit, like how did that affect you?
The thing is, I've thought that after the second album I'd, you know, be more productive in getting albums out, but in between each album has been a gap of about 4 or 5 years on every one. So everyone's like, after a little bit of a break, it's like, I think I just have it, I don't get on, life happens.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I was obviously quite unwell with the circumstances, but then when I started writing again, it became really, really cathartic. And you can really hear the shift in the 2 albums from the first to the second, especially lyrically. And, you know, the first album was a little bit more like, you know, sort of more spiritual and more like sort of thinking outside of myself kind of thing. And the second album was very inward and very, and quite... it was a very cathartic album in that regards. It was a lot of songs about the experience, obviously very cryptically written, but you know, sort of that was a really positive outlet in regards to doing the second record and actually just going, okay, like, you know, I can do this again. Yeah, getting that second album out was a good healing process. Yeah,
it's emotional release, not just in the fact that you're getting more music out, but like the actual self-therapy that you get from writing about these experiences, right?
Yeah, it was definitely like, okay, I can release that. Release that energy, release that emotion. And it's, you know, and then as soon as that album's kind of out, like I never listened to my music again at all. So you kind of, they're going, and done. And
were there any tracks on there that you thought were like just so personal and so like cathartic and so just you singing about your stuff that you like were a bit shy about releasing them, or you've always been all right with that?
I can't even remember.
Like you never listen to your music again after you release it?
No, really? It was real funny though. Like I do it occasionally. Like, you know, I was at the supermarket like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like listening to a song like, that's quite a cool song.
That's a cool song. That's a nice voice.
Familiar. What is that? Like, that's really...
wow, she's really hitting those trills.
Like, it's off long player. It's just so long ago, I don't even know what
I
the
love
songs
those
are
moments.
on it.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. Just going, that's me.
Cool. And it's cool, like
It's actually not a bad song.
Yeah.
I like it.
Sometimes you do need that distance from your project to like see it as a whole, right? And to see like, and to really acknowledge how good it is. Like once you've had a bit of space to grow and like just hear it in that different context, it can be like,
Yeah, I think, because to be honest, it's only been probably about maybe 4 or 5 years that I've been able to talk about the Blue Note thing without crying.
Yeah.
Like, it just brings out a real,
Yeah,
even now,
yeah.
like, it's like, okay.
Thank you for opening that mama for us.
But then, but I couldn't listen to the album again after that as well.
That first album.
And I think I did quite a few years back now, but I think I did listen to it again and had a bit of another shift with it. But I think you just go in so deep on it, and then when it's done, it's like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Cool, next.
Yeah, that's right. Got to focus on the next one. On to the next. Do you have any advice for our listeners that, you know, hopefully no one has to go through all of the stuff that you went through, Hollie, but like, do you have any advice for our listeners that may find themselves in a similar situation?
I think a really important thing is just really establishing that support system. Because the other thing that happened when all of that happened, like, you know, like, I won't mention names or roles, but like I had people sue me thinking that I had made lots of money.
Wow.
Some of those people I considered some of my best friends. You know, and people who I really trusted and loved in that. And so then all of a sudden for them to think that I was making secretly millions of dollars because I'd signed with this label and they wanted like a share of it or whatever. So, you know, I think one thing I always sort of discuss with up and coming people is like, if you're in a band or if you're doing anything, or if you're talking to a manager or something, anything like that, but just get into the habit quite young, I think, of just being really open with your communication, and especially in regards to just the basics like songwriting and stuff, for example, you know, like if you're all in a room and you've all decided, and when you have that korero and start talking about, you know, splits or who wrote what or anything like that, just be really open about that, but also just have it in writing. And just, or even if it's just in an email that everyone agrees with or whatever, just so there's a little paper trail there. And just, you know, if you're talking to management, if you're talking to anyone, just have clear kind of boundaries about what's understood by everybody and have it on file.
And the earlier on, the better, right?
And just to get into the habit of it, you know, and just to have an open sort of understanding of where everyone's at, just so there's no confusion for one, obviously, but then if anything does go wrong, it's kind of quite black and white on how you can deal with it. And that's the problem with creativity, obviously, when you've got people with ideas coming into the room or the song or the sound or whatever, you know, there are grey areas. So to have that clarification is really, I think, really good. I think just, you know, really recognising the people who you've got around you in the industry and outside of the industry, and just where they are in your support system, in your support network, and being able to kind of decompartmentalise a little bit of, you know, with music, and especially when you're younger, like it's all consuming and it's like it's like this massive thing. You're living in this world and that's the world. But realistically, the world's not that. And you do have to kind of step back a little bit sometimes and go, it is just music. And although it's everything I know and feel, it's just music. And that can be something that is enjoyable. And it doesn't have to be taken so seriously. So, you know, trying to just find a little bit of a balance there, because when you do get all consumed, you know, you just can't really see any clarity and you can't step back. You know? And so to be able to go, okay, is this really a big deal? Is this necessary? Do I need to stress myself so much? What's in my control? What's out of my control? Who can I rely on for specific things? And what's my support network look like? And just sort of being mindful of all of these things, I think, just can, you know, the younger you are to start establishing these little things, the easier it is to kind of recognise toxic things in the environment. like easier to kind of recognise, you know, sort of almost, you know, what sort of direction you want to go in and how you want to do it and things like that as well. So I think those things are helpful, yeah, when you're starting out.
Yeah, there's so many good things you touched on there. I don't even know where to start. But I think what you said is just about having that support network from day dot is super important, and having, you know, good friends that you can trust, good whānau that you can trust. They don't always have to be like super music related, right? It can just be someone that you talk to about your emotional stuff. Like they can be your help with your emotional support, and you might have another friend that knows more about the music industry that will help with your more music industry related stuff.
Yeah, just establishing roles.
That's right.
Establishing roles for people.
That's right. And I also like how you touched on the emails thing. Like, I think also as emerging artists, we kind of think that, you know, everything has to be in contract. It has to be like super like formal. You have to sign here for something to be meaningful. Whereas if it's something like songwriting splits or like management splits or something, sorting out those deals early in the process, like sometimes, like you say, just having it written in email or on a message, like can be enough legal support to support you if you do get into
and just
any
keep them
dotty-dotty.
on file somewhere, and just, you know, just if you have a discussion that enters in any kind of agreements or whatever, you know, just have it available if necessary. It's just that thing, like when the thing is, like, business and music aren't friends. They don't work together, but they have to, right? So you kind of have to establish you know, this really creative, emotional, kind of almost spiritual type situation, and then meld it into like this thing that doesn't fit. Like creatives don't fit in anything. Try going banking, try getting insurance, right?
That's right.
Like it just doesn't work in the box. So I think that's the thing, as soon as business, and especially when money gets involved and stuff, like I say, like I had best friends coming after me, people who I had loved for a long time. So, you know, that's where the emotional thing really hurts, because it's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
You know, because then you start like doubting everybody. You're like, what, is everyone like just going to come at me? And it starts becoming quite isolating.
Yeah.
So you just need to be prepared for the thing is that circumstances do change. Things can change and people can change. And so it's just the more clarity you have around, you know, things like agreements and stuff like that, it just brings that thing where it can be a little bit more in your control, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. So you can kind of like go back to an actual tangible thing and be like, no, I was right, or this is what we agreed, or anything like that can help.
And just like acknowledging and being prepared for the fact that there are going to be peaks and troughs in a music career and in life. It's not always going to be
up now, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, I feel like everyone's sort of, it feels like everyone's living a creative life all of a sudden, because it's just so unknown and everything's real crazy.
You got to be creative.
But yeah, it is. It's a really tricky industry. It's tough. Like, you know, there's so many aspects of the industry which are really, really, really hard. You know, I mean, New Zealand is awesome because the industry is so small. There's really good things about that, and there's really negative things about that. I think, especially as young artists, like you know, I think a lot of the time, if you're younger and stuff, and people are like doing the whole, okay, but you've got exposure, and sort of taking advantage of that younger kind of thing, or the naivety of someone maybe a bit younger or whatever. But I think just giving yourself worth is important, and just sort of deciding on what your sort of fee is, or what you do, like, you know, and that's if you're kind of going and doing gigs. So if you're putting on your own gig, that's the risk, right? Like that's always going to be, that's always a gamble. I mean, I still play that. I roll those dice every time I put on a tour, you know, that's, am I going to win or lose? So there is a lot of faith, but I mean, obviously, if you understand the industry well, and if you're doing your kind of homework and understanding how things happen, you know, and how to put these things together well, you know, again, like you do have to understand the business of music to make it work, or to stay in it, like I have for so long, because I know, you know, how I can delegate roles to other people and make sure it's done properly. And coming back to that agreement thing, you know, like if you're doing gigs and stuff, just draw up a really simple, contract, like a basic one-page sort of thing between you and the venue or whatever it is, just to make sure there's, again, that sort of clarity around
everyone's on the
what
same
the
page.
roles and, like who's paying for what. Because the worst thing is when you come out of something and there's a surprise amount that you didn't know about or something. So just, making sure you know what's going where so you do get the most you can out of the situation. I think at the moment it's really tough sort of post-COVID as well because so many things have changed in regards to, being in a recession and no one's, entertainment's the first budget to go, right?
Yeah.
So, across the industry at the moment, it's super, super hard to like find gigs and get work. There's no events, there's no awards things anymore, there's no Christmas parties, there's all these things that have kind of dropped, like these corporate things that have dropped, which kind of keep you on an even keel a lot of the time, like they pay well, pretty easy, just sort of mindless, cool, get it done, that kind of thing. Like there's nothing like that at the moment. And by all accounts, economists are saying not till kind of early 2026. So we've still got a little bit of a thing. Yeah. So it's just like clawing to the end. And I've got a gig tomorrow night, which is less than half what I'd normally charge. But it's like, haven't had a gig in like 2 months. So,
a gig's a gig.
It's like, gotta take it.
That's it.
And, it's like stay active as well, just as in like physically, like for your chops and for your playing and stuff, it's not the same just practicing at home ever. So to keep that up and stuff as well. But I'm hoping that things pick up again because it's tough out there, man. It's tough.
Some advice I got was to do every gig you can until you can afford not to. Like until you're getting like... multiple offers. Yeah, you were that,
and now I've got a little bit back.
Yeah. But
it's just really the nature of the whole world at the moment. Yeah. It's like,
and it depends on which stage of your career
I take it really
at.
personally.
Yeah,
and then my agents are going, it's everybody. Like no one's getting work, and it's hard to kind of get your head around that because it's like, well, what?
So you performed to crowds of like 50,000 people. You've done crazy shows all the way around the world, and then now you're just on the road last year with your guitar, like in the smaller venues. Which do you prefer? Do you get just equal amounts of nervous at both of them, or?
Well, the 50,000 one was a pretty major one. It was Montreal Jazz Festival in Canada.
I've heard of that. Wow.
So that was a bit more pressure stations because it was like a huge investment getting over there, but an amazing opportunity. That was epic. Like it was so much fun, and I wish that I could do that all the time. However, I do really like the small gigs as well, like just the intimacy of it, and because it's a smaller crowd, especially with these ones, like it was really cool. Like I was because I was explaining all these new songs and what they're about, and I was getting really quite personal about the stories behind them and what it was about, and just the way that and I'd joke through the whole thing as well. Like everyone sort of, like having laughs, having cries, and it was quite a journey for everybody. Yes. And afterwards, like people were just coming up, just going, "It's one of the best shows I've ever seen." Like just because it's so raw. And you're just going so deep on stuff, and just the way you could connect with people in a different way. And like heaps of people came up to said that, just like they really needed that. That really saved them out of it. Cool. Like just actually being able to have the opportunity to talk to people properly about stuff, and then
like you actually get to talk to people after the shows, and that kind of situation.
Like sharing stories, and sort of bonding with people and creating like an actual engagement, which is really. Which is nice. So, both of them are cool. I love doing massive gigs, and I haven't done massive gigs for a while.
So for those big ones like Montreal, where there's a lot of pressure and there's been a lot of planning and a lot of like financial pressure of getting everything over there, how do you deal with those nerves and pressure? Do you have pre-performance routines or anything that you just do to get your mental right?
I probably didn't so much then, but I do definitely now. Just again, like having a vocal injury and stuff. I just had surgery like 3-4 months ago. But yeah, I definitely do have a pretty solid routine now. Just sort of looking after myself a bit more. Like I have my nebulizer, and I have my tea and my honey and my and I do my warm-ups and my SOVT exercises and, like all of that kind of thing. I no longer drink before or during a gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just sort of try and just get in the zone a bit and just make sure that physically I'm in a good place and warmed up and breathing properly and that kind of thing. A lot of the students that get nervous that I've taught before, I just make them watch kapahaka.
Cool.
And I'm like, do you think they're nervous? And I'd be like, no. And it's like, they're all nervous.
That's
they
right.
were before a
That's
show,
right.
before a performance, before they're set. They're like, they're freaking out. But when they get on that stage, what are they drawing from? What's their intention? Why are they there? And that really helped a few of my students, just like understanding that, you know, you do have to draw from something.
So, Hollie, you're a kaupapa-driven artist. You've contributed to many charity releases for organisations such as Women's Refuge, New Zealand Breast Cancer Foundation, Starship Hospital, Cure Kids. You've performed at the Remembrance Concert for the Christchurch terrorist attack victims. How important is it for you to use your talents to help charities and to shine a light on their mahi?
I just feel privileged to be in a position where I can use my talents to support things that I believe in. You know, I love children. I understand hardship. I feel like I am a reasonably, quite significantly empathetic person, and try and understand complexities of certain circumstances. So I just try and, you know, sort of go on that. I do have something to give, and it doesn't cost me anything to do that. I do have something to give, and that's, you know, we should all strive to try and give back
We should.
in some way to the society that we want to see, and, you know, and the society we want to create comes from what we can give each other. And so those sort of opportunities that have come up, I'm just always generally really happy to help. You know, it's just I can help, so I will, kind of thing.
And you do it so well.
Thank you.
So you've had waiata that have been inspired by some big kaupapa like Syrian refugee crisis, 2016 US elections, George Floyd protests, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movements, and a song about your first love. What was the process like of writing these songs, and how did it take a toll on you emotionally?
I don't think it did, really. I think writing songs and not being able to find lyrics is more emotionally distressing for me. I find lyric writing very difficult.
You find writing difficult?
Really? Lyrics? Oh my Lord. I could write a song a day if I had lyrics. I think I'm getting better, to be fair. Yeah, I think I am. I'm getting less precious about it, and I'm getting less like, what will people think kind of thing. Because I used to be quite cryptic about shit, and now I'm just sort of like, whatever. You know, like, this is what it's about. But yeah, I think some of those come really easily because, like the one I wrote for Billy, for example, like my first love, so he passed away quite suddenly after his young son was killed in an accident. Wow. Like, incredibly tragic. But then he got like lymphoma like a year later and ended up passing like not that long after his son. And I wrote that. So I was with him. He had passed away in the morning. I was at the house. The funeral director, like, we changed him and stuff, and then just sort of hanging out there for a while, and then went home, and I actually feel like he was involved in that somehow, because I just got home and I just was like, bleh, and it just all came out. Like, it was one of those songs that was already written before it came out of me. Yeah. And it was just about, you know, I hope that he has found home again, like, now that he's with his son. But yeah, it was a couple of the other ones, like, just sort of happen kind of subconsciously, and then they start forming into something that you realise was sort of there all along, you know, there's that one. And then there's some songs that I spend months banging my head against the desk going, why can't I find a two-syllable word? Like, you know, so
why doesn't it fit?
Yeah, I find that it's really, really tough. That's something I find tough when people are asking me questions about. It's like, I don't know. It's a miracle that anything comes out, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny that idea that you say about some songs feeling like I feel like they're already out there in the universe. They the lyrics and everything is just there. It's like you're just tapping into it sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, that was weird.
Yeah, it just needed to happen.
I mean, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it feels
beautiful,
great. Yeah.
But yeah, don't get it twisted. People that are listening, like it's not always that easy.
It's a handful of times.
Majority of the songs are the head
7,
banging against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in that thing at the moment. I do that thing where I sort of start these different ideas and haven't got lyrics for any of them, or just like vague ideas or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just go between them, just going, no, next one. Nope, and then I get to a point where I'm not allowed to write any more ideas until I actually finish the last one.
Yeah, so that's just a self-imposed.
Yeah, well, I have to because at the moment I've probably got about 8 or 9 ideas, which are all semi in different forms of progress, but lyrically they're quite empty, and it's just like, I can't think, and then I get overwhelmed because then I'm like. I get angry and then I leave the room. It's like, I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll be inspired tomorrow.
Future Hollie can deal with that.
Yeah, future Hollie problem.
So when you have to perform that deeply personal song, like that you've maybe got a bit of history with, like how do you usually overcome that? Like, do you just make a joke with the audience beforehand, or do you just suck it up and try and focus on like...
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I never used to like speak in like gigs. I that was one thing. I was fine singing, but I just was really awkward in between songs because I was like, how do I say something to 500 people?
Yeah,
like that everyone relates to. So it's like, and start singing again.
Next song.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, let's go. But yeah, the Bones tour was actually really good for that because and that's the thing, I got better and better at it and got like quite deep on it. And by the end of it, like, you know, people again would otherwise be laughing or crying. Yeah, I don't know. I think you just sort of come down to quite often in those circumstances where I'm not really getting too emotionally into the song, I start getting a bit more technical. Like I just sort of start thinking about like how I'm singing. Like, am I singing well? What am I doing here? Like, so just change the angle of my focus.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like, rather than...
Just detach a little bit and go, can I hit that note tonight? Or how am I going to do this run? Instead of going, how does this make me feel?
Yeah, I'm going to take myself exactly to where I was when I wrote this.
Yeah, it's a bit method acting.
That's a good little tip. I have a thing if I'm like overthinking lyrics or something in the studio, if I'm starting to get like too much inside my head, I'll just like try focus on the sensation of the reverberation in the back of my throat and just like focus on that feeling while I'm singing rather than actually thinking too much about what I'm thinking, just because it helps bring me out of my head.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And so I think there's heaps of ways like that to like, help you get out of your head sometimes. In the past 5 years, you've begun writing and performing in Te Reo Māori. Shout out for that, ngā mihi, including a bilingual collab with Teeks. You've translated Bathe in the River into a bilingual version, Korukutia, as part of Waiata Anthems, which was documented for TVNZ. How important has it been for you to honour Te Reo Rangatira through your art?
Almost just to piss off people who have a problem with it, to be honest, you know. It's like, if I need more of a drive, it's like, is this going to annoy you that I'm singing in like our national language? Okay, I'll do it more. Kind of for that reason, a little bit, but I just wanted to, like as I explained on Waiata Anthems, like, you know, like I know a bit of Te Reo Māori. I need to obviously learn a lot more, but it's more the fact that I do that thing where I practice and then I go to say it out loud and it goes and I'm like, and then I get too nervous to speak it because I'm like, I know how to do this, but as soon as I actually have to say it out loud to people, then that's when I panic and I get it all wrong or whatever, and it's like and so I guess for doing Korukutia was just having to kind of force that. That, you know, sort of having to try and find that confidence and having to kind of trust the process and kind of just go into it in a different way. Like obviously it's singing, so it's a little bit easy for me because it's a phrasing thing and it's you know, there's a melodic, you know, thing that makes my brain work differently. But I think just, you know, it was really amazing kind of going through the translation progress with Tweedy Waititi. You know, and just sort of, you know, because the lyrics, it's not a transliteration for Korukutia, which is Bathe in the River. it kind of goes quite deep on the, actual kaupapa of the song, which Don got really like quite deep with. And, obviously I didn't write the song, but then she drew from a lot of my sort of feelings on it as well to kind of create that version. So, I know it was, like Don just absolutely adored that process.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my single Coming In From The Dark as well. Stevie Morrison translated that one for me, and that was, again, it was just quite interesting to go into the song, because all of a sudden you're almost writing a new song, right? Because you're going into the emotion behind it opposed to like just the words of it. So yeah, just seeing that, like that kind of beautiful way that Te Reo Māori can take a phrase and create a colour and create a whole mood with it, opposed to just words. It kind of becomes a little bit more than words, kind of thing.
And create that extra depth to the meaning, right? Because a lot of this stuff, for people that don't know, when we are doing whakamaori, when we are doing translating English songs into te reo, like it's not always just literal translation. A lot of the times we're translating the vibe, and then when we're translating into that vibe, it just creates a whole another level of meaning, right? Which I think is super powerful when you're doing it.
That was a funny thing about Bathe in the River, because everyone's listening to the chorus going, well, where's why? Where's awa? Where's like, why is there
it's
no
like, no,
river
we didn't
in
want to
song?
sing it like that.
And it's like, well, kurikutia is more of a, it's actually kind of a slightly older Māori word from what I understand.
Yeah,
and
I thought it might be.
It basically is like a cleansing, like a baptism. So it's like,
Beautiful.
like you're being cleansed by the water in a spiritual sense. So, it's sort of that whole, the cleansing kind of thing. So it's a different kind of, a different, deeper level meaning of
that
what it
sums up the kaupapa all in one kupu, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
When you took part in Waiata Anthems the second time, you said you were worried about some people might seeing your involvement as overstepping, and you said you felt a bit whakama, ashamed, or maybe a bit embarrassed about not wanting to get things wrong or not wanting to offend people. Can you tell us a bit about that process and how you work through those feelings?
I think I'm just getting a little less precious and a little less, sort of, I've got to a point now where I don't care as much what people think, like,
It's a good point to be at.
Yeah, it is. But I think in regards to Te Reo Māori, I guess it was, being Pākehā, I don't want to see, like there's the two arguments, right? It's like anyone supporting the kaupapa is, like that's great, that's really cool. And then there's the other thing where it's like, white people trying to save the to save the day, and sort of whitewashing it a bit. So I just, wanted to be on that right intention of like, I'm doing this because I support Māori, support tangata whenua, and like I'm not trying to like step in and be like the savior, guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually just doing it to support
That's right.
everything else that's happening. So yeah, I just didn't, I didn't want people to think that it was like for me. I'm not doing it for me, like so like I'm helping.
Yeah,
it's just to try.
It's for the community.
The intention is to support and
That's
to have it more like not necessarily more awareness, but just it being there is important. So yeah, that was
for sure. Like
that thing.
I think that's awesome that you set that intention. I think a lot of people do go through that also. Like a lot of people, non-Māori, Pākehā, Tauiwi, they do feel that whakama, but I think to have like a thriving Māori music industry and thriving Māori language, that we all do need to get behind it. And it is so amazing to see artists like yourself and other artists just like, just doing it. And like you say, not being too precious, not worrying too much about what other people think. Just do it because it feels right. Yeah. If it feels right, then do it and send it out there.
I reckon.
Yeah.
The more the merrier, I reckon.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Agreed. Emerging artists can feel a lot of pressure when they're sharing their baby, sharing their art, their song babies with the world for the first time, whether it's through lyrics or performing for the first time. As someone who's been in the industry since you were 16, what advice would you give to these artists, Hollie?
Kind of repeating a little bit, but I guess it is that thing of just, just it doesn't have to be that serious. and we can just like, enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to kind of get sort of so involved in your own bubble, and so I think just being able to sort of find a balance and being able to step back a little bit. And also, music's an industry that you don't really actually kind of get like, hey, you did a really good job today. Like, that was really great. You kind of get adoration kind of things after shows or things, whatever, but that's not the same thing. It's not like, hey, you did really well today with that application. And, I had just been working on a funding application and I had a mentor helping. And she was like, hey, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
Like, this is really great. Like, what you're doing
Great
is really, really
spreadsheet,
good.
Hollie.
Like, really, yeah, basically. It's like, I did it.
Yeah.
And just like, she goes, I'm trying to say things like that more because in the industry we don't have that, hey, you're doing really well. Like, this is great. So you have to be your own motivator and your own inspiration and your own everything a lot of the time. And, well, if you're a solo artist, of course. And I think that's the trickiest part because obviously we critique ourselves harsher than anyone else would critique. I remember getting like bad reviews or something and everyone's going, oh, that's disgusting. That, like, you shouldn't be talking like that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, I totally agree with them. But, it's like, you don't know what I'm saying to myself, dude. There's way worse than that review.
True.
So, you're so harsh on yourself and the expectations are really high and, you're sort of constantly not really good enough. A lot of my success has been from fear of failure for sure. But that's not a great thing. Don't take that advice by any means. But, just like having to be your own motivator and your own inspiration and stuff, that's what I find hard about it.
Yeah.
Because, if you don't feel like doing it, it's real hard to do it.
Because we don't.
So finding that discipline and stuff is real important.
Big time.
And that kind of helps with taking yourself out a little bit as well. Because it's like, well, today, even if I don't keep anything, I'm going to write for half an hour. And I just need to write something. It doesn't need to be kept. It doesn't need to, but like the discipline of doing it on a daily or regular basis or whatever, it is a skill that you have to uphold, so, and lyric writing is that as well. Like when I'm writing a lot, I write a lot more.
Yeah.
And if I go in cold after not writing for ages, that's when I get trapped again and this sort of stop-start thing. I don't know if that answered your question. I just went on a total tangent.
I think there's a lot of good takeaways from that, though.
But just sort of being your own. Being your own friend, man. Like you got to be kind
nice
to
to
yourself. Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to do. Especially if you're ambitious and you're creative and
give yourself a high five for doing that spreadsheet.
Yeah. Just be like, look at me go.
Yeah. Just did a whole funding application by myself.
Yeah, no way, never. But I did it all by myself. I just had help. The one thing that I do to myself, which I think everyone kind of does now, it's hard to avoid it, but, going on social media and seeing other people achieve in a way that's like, well, why can't I do that, And you kind of constantly, doing that, comparing yourself to others is something that I'm not good at. Like, I kind of feel like hard-out imposter syndrome all the time. And so, when I see people do stuff, it's like, oh, well, obviously I'm not doing that because I'm not good enough or, things like that. So trying to change those negative thoughts is really difficult. Coming back to just sort of being a bit more realistic with things and making, achievable goals, I think is really important. Like going, like, I want this massive, massive, massive thing. And why can't I get it? And then go, okay, well, what are the steps to get there? And let's break this down so we've actually got an achievable things to do. Yeah. And even as something as simple as arranging a song or recording a song or whatever, like just decompartmentalize everything. What needs to be done? Like what goes first? We're, just like little steps at a time, and then it all combined to become the thing. But you can't just jump steps and get there. You've got to do the mahi, right? And you got to create realistic goals for yourself so it's not so overwhelming and such an impossible kind of thing, or like, oh, I could never do that because I'm not good enough, but that kind of thing. There's ways of structuring your expectations that you can achieve things well.
Yeah, I've tried to switch my perspective over the years also, and tried to focus on what I can control. You know, like I can't control like whether a song's gonna get picked up by a big playlist or go number one in Aotearoa, but I can control if I'm making music that I like or music that's fun for me, and like, or if I'm making a project that's like I'm super proud of, like I can control that part. Like all of the other stuff is just external. And once you kind of have that shift and just learn to, like you say, enjoy the ride, enjoy the process, and don't take it too seriously, then I think you're on the path to happiness as a musician, but happiness as a human. Thanks so much, Hollie. Like, that's been an awesome kōrero, and I really appreciate you sharing and going deep with us today.
My pleasure.
One final part, how do you think young artists can best look after themselves mentally, physically, and spiritually as they navigate this so-called industry?
So just to get into habits of certain things like discipline with, you know, if you're musician, like, you know, warming up your, whatever it is you're using, like warming up your body, warming up your voice, warming up your things. I think just like the physical, real basic common sense elements shouldn't be neglected, because it actually will just give you so much more longevity with your actual like skill that you use. But yeah, just physically keeping fit. Like if you're on the road and you normally run at home, like just try and get out for 20 minutes, you know, just run around the block or whatever, get some fresh air. Just, you know, just make sure you're doing all of the, like the boring mindfulness, looking after yourself physically, keeping fit. I think exercise as well, just for your mental health, is just, you know, I think it's such annoying advice, and I hate it when I'm not doing so great and people talk about exercise and I'm like,
go for a workout.
Get away from me immediately. But if you keep that in your routine, man, it makes just a world of difference with your mental health, I reckon. And on the road and recording and stuff, like that's another way to kind of take yourself out of the bubble, you know, and just, you know, like listen to a podcast instead of music or whatever it is. Or listen to another podcast. You know, so like just find different ways to disconnect every now and again, I think is a good idea.
And don't feel guilty with yourself when you do those disconnects. Because they're super essential to having a sustainable 100%. Career.
It's the balance, right? So yeah, disconnect when you have to. Be kind to yourself. Look after your body.
That's right.
There's so much more shit out there these days. So we've got to like just protect your vibes, man. You know?
Thank you so much for the kōrero. I think that's a really cool note to finish on, and I know this will resonate with our listeners. So yeah, we really appreciate you joining us for the kōrero.
Thank you for having me, dude.
Oh, good. That's us for now, whānau. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of On the Record.
Peace out.
Peace.